July 20th Village Council meeting will please come to order. We invite you to stand for prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Our Father, who art in heaven, as a body we congregate in this council chambers, makeshift, for the betterment of our fellow citizens, lead us that we may do all things well. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Present.
Mr. Brickway?
Here.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Here.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Here.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Here.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Here.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Present.
Let the record show that all 7 members are present. Members of council, what is your pleasure on the reading of the minutes of the last meeting?
Mr. President, I make a motion to dispense with the reading of the council minutes from the last meeting.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to dispense with the reading of the last minutes. Are there any remarks? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Members of council, are there any errors or corrections to the minutes as submitted? If not, the minutes will stand as submitted. We'll move to reports of city officials. Mayor, Mr. Stuckey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Congratulations to the St. Bernard Stingrays, who came in first place in the NSSL Championship Small Team Division. This 2-day event hosted here in the village was a huge success. Thank you to all the swimmers, coaches, parents, volunteers, our patient residents, businesses, and our awesome service, police, fire, and recreation departments, and our incredible pool staff. This village was a great host, and the compliments keep coming in. St. Bernard is proud of the Stingrays for representing us so well, and I am so glad that I was able to witness some of this memorable event. The demolition of 4416 Greenlee will be done sometime next week, and notice to residents for parking restrictions will go out once we have the exact day when this will begin. Restrictions on parking will be from Greenlee Garage to Church Street. As some of you may have seen, there was a product failure with the coating that was applied to the pavilion floor, and that is being addressed by the contractor and the manufacturer. We are also currently seeking estimates for replacement of the pavilion roof, which will be presented to council as well. We are still working on bids and scope of work for both Vine and Greenlee, so we hope to have more detail by the next committee of the whole. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Auditor, Ms. Brickway.
Thank you, Mr. President. On tonight's agenda is ordinance 2323. This provides additional appropriations to General Fund 2K2 miscellaneous in the amount of $20,000, General Fund 2010 park maintenance in the amount of $10,000, General Fund 58-8 holiday activity $3,000, General Fund 58-9 community events $15,000, and General Fund 8A2 building maintenance safety center for $4,000. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Director of Law, Ms. Van Valkenburg.
Thank you. I met last night with the Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committee, and it was attended by several other members of council as well as several members of the public. We were discussing the revisions to the weeds and garbage or litter ordinance, and I'm in the process of incorporating the changes that we discussed yesterday, and I will be able to present that and want it on the agenda for the next committee of the whole meeting in August. Thank you.
Thank you. Treasurer, Mr. Ungrue.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening I have the bank statement from Star, Ohio. The village's funds there at the end of June, so June 30th, 2023, totaled $17,787,414.20. I'll make copies and put it in everyone's box. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Safety and Service Director, Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. President. The punch list for the parks has been produced, and now the installers are coming back to repair and do the finishing touches. I'm gathering estimates to fix and replace the front ramp of City Hall. With that being said, I must revisit the elevator again. We need access to both floors. I called a contact, and the person he sent to us happens to be the OEM for the elevator. I am hoping that this is a twist of fate. I gave him permission to diagnose and fix at time and material. Keep in mind, I explained to you about it was a circuit board. If that circuit board is good, we can repair the elevator. However, if the receptacle for that circuit board is bad, by receptacle, I mean the motherboard plugs in to the something behind the little box. If that back there is bad, that's going to be a discussion for a CAL meeting. So we need positive hope, which brings me to my community. We are capable of manifesting thoughts, ideas, and placing them out into the universe. Usually you try to seed positive vibes so that those around you benefit from the harvest. Each of us has had thoughts of, they never have anything good to say. However, let that person who puts forth happy energy walk up to you and suddenly you have a light heart with a big smile on your face. Try to be that person. Be positive. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Is there a report from the tax administrator?
No.
Nothing? Okay. We'll move to reports of standing committees. Finance, Mr. DeBerke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to let everybody know, I've reserved this hall for October 5th, 6:30 for Meet the Candidate Night. This will be my last time hosting this. Hopefully in 2 years, someone else can take it over. Here's my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Safety, Mr. Brickwig.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report, but I wanted to congratulate the Stingrays on their spectacular win, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Service, Ms. Hausfeld.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight I have the report. The waste collection fee for the month of May was $28,024.93, was remitted to the village, and I too want to congratulate the St. Bernard Stingrays. Job well done.
Thank you. Public improvements, Mr. Bob Culbertson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The St. Bernard CIC is currently looking for a board member for the CIC. It has to be a resident, so those interested in this opportunity, feel free to contact a current board member, and they can put your name forth. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Laws, contracts, and claims, Ms. Bettinghouse.
Thank you, Mr. President. As Valerie has already stated, the Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committee met last night to discuss the ordinance for the weeds and grass cutting for compliance and the consequences, which again will be available at Committee of the Whole for discussion. Also, on August 16th at 6:30, location is yet to be determined because we don't know if we'll be back in City Hall or in the council chambers or right here. Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committee will be meeting to discuss the short-term rental ordinance. And I too would just like to say congratulations to the Stingray, but I also want to congratulate and say thank you to everybody in the village, from administration all the way down through all the services, fire, police. I went past the park on several occasions and the parking lots, and everything was like a well-oiled machine. So thanks to everybody. It was very impressive just riding around as a citizen. Thanks.
Thank you. Marketing, Mr. Ray Culbertson.
Thanks, Mr. President. This is the final reminder from council that the German luau is taking place on Friday, August 4th from 5 p.m. to midnight, and Saturday, August 5th from noon to midnight. And the ever popular parade will be coming back this year, and that will start at 1 p.m. on Saturday, August 5th. The adult night at the Aquatic Center will be held on Friday, July 28th from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. And I too would like to thank everybody involved in the swim championships. Seem to go off without a hitch. And I would also like to thank the council members and the administration for being flexible and switching the council date to today versus next week. So much appreciated. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Business and Industry, Mr. Schultmeyer.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Committee of the Whole, Ms. Stegman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Minutes were submitted late last night. I apologize. And I have no communications.
Thank you. At this time, could you please give the first reading of ordinance number 23, 2023?
Ordinance number 23, 2023, authorizing and directing the auditor to provide additional appropriations and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 23, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 23, 2023.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance 23, 2023. Are there any remarks? not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 23? Not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse.
make a motion to adopt ordinance number 23, 2023.
Second that.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Mr. Ray Culbertson to adopt ordinance 23, 2023. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 23, 2023 is adopted as read. At this time, does anyone on council have anything under old business?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
may I ask the mayor, is there any update on the medical marijuana dispensary? Last year, you said you had the building department look at it.
I don't have really any update on that at this point. And as far as having the building department look at it, I mean, we basically do need to address that back in laws, contracts, and claims, because that is where it really kind of originated as to finding an appropriate location and defining that as to whether or not it would be incorporated into, you know, our adult entertainment district, or whether or not there would be any room for it in any retail area. But based upon what was already designated, as far as with respect to the state, there's quite a few restrictions based upon the locations of our parks, our schools, our libraries, and churches. So that probably needs to be addressed so that it could be defined in our zoning. So that would need to go back, and I would, I guess, probably ask again for the law director's assistance on that, because I think it's even more beyond just dealing with, you know, our zoning official.
Did I hear Ms. Bettinghouse?
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that we have a special council meeting on the same night as the Committee of Whole on August 10th to give the first reading of 2 ordinances. One is the grass cutting and the trees and litter that was discussed at Laws, Contracts, and Claims. And the other one is for the grant for the demolition of the shopping center.
We have a motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Mr. Bob Culbertson to have a special council meeting on August 10th at 7:45 to discuss the 2 ordinances, the grass ordinance as well as the demolition ordinance. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Anyone else on under old?
Mr. President?
Mayor?
Mr. President, I was just going to ask, since people have been putting information out on Facebook about the front yard gardens and what you're changing in the ordinance, since you're going to probably be taking the first vote, can we get some information out on the Facebook page, on the website, on what the proposed changes are so people can read them ahead of time?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
so Valerie is in making changes to that ordinance, so I don't know if she would be able to put any kind of language out there or not.
Mr. President?
Ms. Van Valkenburg?
Yes, we had some discussion about front yard gardens and things like that last night. But I think the main focus that we're really focusing on at this point, and I'm sure the committee will correct me if I'm wrong, is we really wanted to nail down, like, you know, the weeds and the grass cutting and enforcement actions on that. There was some discussion concerning the gardens, those kinds of things last night, but I think there were any major changes regarding that, I think we'll probably maybe need to have some more discussion, because we had members of the public that were in attendance who were very interested and very knowledgeable. So I think that it's going to be more of a 2-parter, I think, before we can really address a lot of substantive changes to the gardening part of it. At least that's my understanding from my takeaway from last night. Hopefully you'll correct me if I misunderstood.
Mr. President, no, Valerie, I think you're correct. I think some of the verbiage that was being changed in there is still almost like what was in the other ordinance, so there's nothing to say that they can't have those gardens. So right now, again, that's not officially something that's really being looked at a lot on that ordinance. It is more of the compliance and the consequences of grass cutting and not keeping up your property. So that will be tackled a little bit more in the future for, I guess, more information and content regarding that piece of it. But in the ordinance right now, it's basically the same as what we already have. Is that correct statement then, Valerie?
Yes, that was my understanding.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Mayor.
So just to reaffirm that, basically, we left last night with the idea that we would revisit that, but it would be ridiculous to actually try to conquer that right this moment, because by that time, the issues that we're having with the high grass wouldn't even be resolved this year. I mean, so during the mowing season. So I think the idea was to get that part done. Part two would be to address the other side of it and, go into that, at a later date when it could be more appropriately, handled. So that was how I felt when we walked out. So I don't think there was anything else other than that.
Mr. President,
Ms. Brickwood.
that's all fine. I'm just saying that we probably should put it out there for the people to be able to look at it ahead of time in case they want to come and speak on it, on any of it, instead of just having a meeting that night, you presenting it that night, and then we vote. You didn't give the public any chance to even look at anything. That's all I'm saying is if it was done a day or two ahead of time, that we could put it out there so people could look at it. I usually, no, not usually, I read the ordinances before a meeting, so.
Mr. President, I agree, and I thought that's kind of what we were going to do
Okay.
anyhow, but it's not directed at that one particular piece with the front yard gardens. So, but yes, the whole issue, so that we can get the word out, so that people will understand as well that there's going to be much quicker enforcement as far as on the violations with respect to high grass and weeds and trash.
Mr. President,
Ms. Van Volk.
my time frame was I'm going to work this weekend on it, trying to incorporate the changes as I understood them from last evening, to circulate a draft of what I thought incorporated those changes to the Committee of the Whole members next week, and have them have a chance to look at it. And after that, if we want to get it posted or something, once we've decided on, once I know that I've incorporated what we want to go forward from the guidance I received last night, once I got that feedback from council after that, I could imagine it would be available to be posted.
Mr. President?
Mayor.
I do have one other item for laws, contracts, and claims. Well, actually, a couple, but I'll wait, and because I know how we can't be, accomplishing more than one thing at a time. But the Chapter 923, basically waste collection and recycling, under 923.12, waste and refuse removal, we do already have obviously established times as to when residents can put their garbage cans out at the curb in advance of their collection day, and also when they need to have their empty cans back onto their property. We do already have an established fine schedule, basically starting with a warning and then working through a scale. But the remedy to that actual issue is not defined in that who was going to do the fining and how it could be handled in an expedient manner. So I would like to have that section looked at as to whether or not we can incorporate so that there would actually could be an official citation that would actually be, or warning then citation that would be issued. Because again, one of the issues that we have is it's not just the placement of cans too far in advance, but yet individuals that leave their cans at the curb even until the next collection day. So, I mean, I think that needs to be addressed, but if we were to define this more specifically as to how it could be dealt with in an expedient manner as to whether or not it would be handled by the police or whomever, because right now it lists the Director of Public Service and Safety. And if, again, I want to make sure that we can do something a little more efficiently with respect to that area. So I would ask that we be able to look at it, and I did mention that to the law director last night at the end of the meeting.
Mr. President.
Mr. Bob Culbertson.
So Jonathan, I haven't seen the new grass cutting ordinance. Who's enforcing that? Yeah, and would that be the same person that would enforce the trash, making sure?
Mr. President?
Mayor.
So as of right now, the way that it is stated with the grass enforcement, that basically has the Director of Public Safety and Service or their designee being the sanitarian. So, I mean, as far as starting through that written process and notification, that kind of thing. But as far as what I'm asking about, because this is something that, obviously, you're not gonna sit there and give them 5 more days to leave their can at the curb. I mean, this is gonna be something that needs to be dealt with, and whether or not technically, you could issue a citation, or whether or not legally the Director of Public Safety and Service having a ticket book, or whether or not you would actually put this in the hands of the police that could go around and actually issue a citation. So I'm just asking to look at it and define this part more clearly, because the process obviously should not be as involved as that of dealing with high grass and the legal notification and all of that. I don't see how that could be resolved. So, again, we already have an established, fee schedule for this, so I think it could easily be defined in how we could deal with it in a more expedient manner.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettingham.
what ordinance is that, Jonathan?
So I'll just give this to you.
Okay. And would you like to also put this on for the August 16th meeting?
Mr. President, is that,
Mayor.
I mean, that seemed to be pretty expedient to me, just like.
I think it could
grass.
be, that could be pretty, I think we could make that much quicker than the grass discussion.
Yeah. Okay, so let's put that on also for the August 16th meeting at 6:30, and we'll first discuss this ordinance, and then we'll discuss the short-term rental.
Mr. President,
Mr. Bob Culbertson.
I make a motion that we add the trash can as the third agenda item.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. Bob Culbertson, seconded by Ms. Bettinghouse to add
I give her the fees.
the definition of who is going to be able to cite people for their garbage
It's just the rest of it.
per section 923.12. And that will be at the August 10th Committee of the Whole special meeting. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor of adding it, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
Mr. President,
Ms. Brickwick.
I have a question, because we were discussing this at City Hall. Does that ordinance there say what the times are? Because I think maybe it wouldn't hurt to read that tonight so people actually know, because it seemed like everybody had a different opinion.
It's in the page that I originally gave you.
Sorry.
Sorry. There we go. There's the times. 4 o'clock.
Yes, it says here, the owner, occupant, or person having charge or management of any lot or parcel of land situated within the village, whether the same is improved or unimproved, vacant or occupied, shall not permit containers, plastic garbage bag, refuse, or debris to be set out for collection prior to 4 p.m. on the day before regular waste collection, or after 7:30 a.m. on the day of regular waste collection for that property. All containers shall be taken in no later than 8 p.m. on the day of regular waste collection.
Thank you. I had the wrong times in my head.
All right, anyone else under old business? Does anyone on council have anything under new business? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council this evening?
Mr. President, I misspoke earlier. When I read my number, I was told looking at the form, it says $12 million, but apparently I said 17. So I apologize for my oversight. And again, a copy of this will be in everyone's mailbox with the right number. Thank you.
Dag, I thought we had more.
All right, thank you. With that, the next committee of the whole then will be Thursday, August 10th at 7 p.m., followed by a special council meeting on that same night at 7:45 p.m. This time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Ray Culbertson, second by Mr. Bob Culbertson to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.